This is
Yep.
Rona Walensky. I'm one of your hosts for the Mindful Education Summit 2019, which is brought to you by the Awake Network and Mindful. In this session, our guest is Jill Merolla, who is a long-standing employee of the Warren City School District in Warren, Ohio. She's been a teacher, a principal, a district administrator, and her current title is that she is the supervisor of community outreach and grant development, as well as the social emotional learning lead in the district. Welcome, Jill. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for taking your time to join this community. So today, this is one of our case studies, and we are going to hear about how SEL and mindfulness has unfolded in Warren, Ohio. And I like to begin by asking Jill to tell us a little bit about Warren, Ohio, just to provide us with some context.
Yes, Warren, Ohio is my hometown. Lived here my entire life. It's a town that has changed a lot. Warren is in northeastern Ohio, and at one time was an industrial powerhouse. Had lots of industry, a lot of high-paying blue-collar jobs, a very kind of vibrant middle class. And then as jobs moved to Mexico and overseas, a lot of those very well-paying jobs have left our district, left the city of Warren, and has really impacted the school district of Warren City Schools. And at one time we had probably 14,000 students in our district, and now we're down to about 5,000. And just, we probably have a very high level of poverty in our school district. And at one time we maybe had 30% of our students on free and reduced lunch. We're about 90%. So just a big change since when I grew up in Warren, a very prosperous town, to one that has a lot of challenges and a lot of poverty and a lot of need. And part of the job in my school district is to connect the community and the needs of our students. And so, quite a bit of changes in Warren, Ohio.
So can you tell us how it first came to be that Warren, Ohio got connected to the SEL and mindfulness movements?
We have our congressman, our U.S. Congressman, Tim Ryan, who had a kind of an epiphany probably 10, 12 years ago with SEL and mindfulness, and was very interested in bringing it to area schools. And about 10 years ago, was able to get some federal funding to fund SEL and mindfulness work in two of our local school districts in northeastern Ohio, the Warren City Schools and the Youngstown City Schools. And at that time, I came onto my current job to manage this kind of large grant. And through that grant, we were able to kind of create a plan on what SEL and mindfulness would look like in our kind of impoverished school districts and the needs of our students. And it's been an amazing journey. Mr. Congressman Ryan connected us to some of the best SEL and mindfulness people in the country through the Morningside Center for Teaching Responsibility and the Inner Resilience Program under Linda Lantieri. And they have done trainings in our school district for the past 10 years. And, we started very small 10 years ago, kind of starting at the very beginning, preschool, kindergarten, and we were seeing some really good results. And so we kind of continued up the ladder with, the primary grades. We at one point had all pre-K to 5. Our high school got very interested. And this year our middle school's on board. So we went from just having a couple grades trained in SEL and mindfulness to the whole district within 10 years. And it's an amazing journey. I'm very thankful. And through this, our school district, the past 10 years, we've had 5 superintendents, which is a challenge. Some of them were interested in that, in in SEL and mindfulness, some were not. Our current superintendent that's been with us the past 5 years sees the value of it. And since that has occurred, things have really sped up. And there's an expectation that this is going to be in our classrooms and in our district and our building plans at SEL is is kind of our main climate, kind of our main kind of climate vehicle that gets us where we need to go to improve student outcomes and improve school climate. So it's an incredible journey from kind of starting small to really scaling up. And the last couple of years, we've had SEL and mindfulness administrative retreats in the summer. We do ongoing training, and we've done a lot of train the trainers with some of our school counselors and some of our lead teachers. So it's kind of been an amazing journey, starting from our congressman's kind of his dream to where we are today. And the other district, we both started at the same time. They've had similar superintendent changes. Probably the big difference is that I've been kind of in the same position the whole time. And this is something that's so meaningful to me because, I'm a practitioner of mindfulness myself, even before we started the process. So this was an easy component that I was, very comfortable, continuing year after year and training other people and kind of gaining people within my own tribe. And so I've been very pleased on where we've ended so far, and I'm anticipating even greater things.
So I'd like to just go back to those early days, because sometimes getting started can be the hardest thing. So the outside opportunity was this federal money, mm-hmm. and the influence and leadership of Congressman Ryan. So he approaches, without naming names, he approaches the Warren City School District, and who gives permission, and what are the first things that start to happen, and what does it start to look like? So just those first years of just preschool and kindergarten, how did it get going to begin with, and then what kinds of activities took place in the very beginning?
Our original superintendent, probably 10 years ago, that was kind of her graduate program and getting her PhD. So it was an easy sell for her, though she left probably mid-year the first year. But I think the quality of the people that we worked with in the opening programming, the first year we had 25 hours of work around the SEL curriculum that was chosen, the 4 R's, and mindfulness, and some ongoing coaching that was involved. We had trainers that came in and worked with our teachers that were involved in the summer. It was a summer training, and we had kind of monthly check-ins, and it was just so well done, such high quality. And the people that we worked with, their presentation skills and the belief system they had, I think that just really made a difference. That the buy-in was so, I think it was just so effortless because of the quality of the introduction we had to it. And I think that made a tremendous difference. And, and many of those same people, I'm still in contact today because of just the kind of the leadership we saw at the very onset.
So were people voluntold, or did people volunteer for that summer workshop? How did that happen?
You know what? I think it was a matter of maybe voluntold, but I think that the kind of the premise behind it, we had people that came, they didn't miss. And once they started coming to that kind of week-long training, it made it so much easier because when we went to the next cohort of first and second and third grade, the stories kind of went through that this is an awesome training. This is kind of transformational. And it kind of sold itself, and it's continuing to sell itself even today. That I think it also, because it speaks to your humanity. And in schools we're so involved in data and data collection and testing and measurement, and SEL and mindfulness kind of really speaks to the humanity of educators and the humanity of the children that we serve. And I think that's something that people hunger for. And I think that was one of the main reasons why that momentum just kept going, and it's continuing to this day because of that.
So what actually happens in the classroom or the school? We can go back to the early days, or it sounds like there's been some basic continuity of the way the training has rolled out. What does SEL and mindfulness look like in a school, in Warren City schools?
Right now, I think it's almost kind of the basis of how we view our school through an SEL lens. And I think that was something that's kind of ongoing. It's kind of a change in mindset. And I think, we started at the beginning with a curriculum, because you have to kind of start somewhere that's kind of solid. And the curriculum kind of connected to our literacy framework. So it kind of really went hand in hand. The mindfulness piece was kind of a way this was kind of, I feel, very new to our teachers. We're a high poverty district. We have some really severe problems in our community, and your school reflects the community you have. And that mindfulness piece gave teachers a way of kind of dealing with some of the chaos that maybe happens outside of our schools, and gave them a different way of kind of quieting children's minds, kind of looking at the needs of children needing quietness, and teaching them how to find that quiet place amongst themselves. And if you go around after lunch, especially, you may see rooms where the lights are dimmed. You may have children that are laying on the ground, maybe with a Beanie Baby, watching their breath. It may be something where they project maybe a candle or a very peaceful scene. But we're seeing that people are seeing that as, and probably 10 years ago, that wouldn't be something you would see. And we're starting to see this somewhat in the middle school and in the high school as well, that it just kind of changed how we looked at, how are we impacting our students? How can we bring them a sense of calm and safety? And I think this is kind of that strategy. Now, there are people that mindfulness isn't for them. It's not something that, you have to do this. But if you see value in it, those teachers that really see value in it, I think really take it to the next level. And I think that option where you have to feel comfortable. There's nothing worse than someone that has to do mindfulness. They're not comfortable with it. And then I think it doesn't calm the children at all. But I see teachers looking at what other teachers are doing, and some teachers are very good at kind of adjusting and adapting what mindfulness means to a certain grade level or a certain classroom of children. And I've seen some really wonderful creativity in that.
So let's just think about an elementary school where maybe there's been a training offered through all the grade levels. We've gotten that far in in the journey that Warren City has taken. And there is some teacher turnover. There may be some principal turnover. There's a need to kind of keep it going. So are there people how does that work in terms of bringing new people on board, supporting people who've already been trained, but helping them stick with it, having teachers build a culture? Is there someone who has a responsibility in a given school to sort of coach, guide, nurture?
Yes, we do. I mean, the first couple of years we had some additional funding, we brought back our original trainers. Of course, that funding doesn't stay forever. One of the things that we did through that is doing some train the trainer. I'm probably the main trainer in the district, and probably the last 5 years, I've conducted a lot of the training for any new staff. So I probably train, especially the K-5 staff. I pretty much train everybody. I also have some school counselors that were kind of the original cohort, and I probably have about 5 or 6 of them that when we do training, do the ongoing trainings with me. And then that also gives them in the building, they're kind of that local expert. And one thing we've done in our school district is we have SEL Mondays, and the entire district on Mondays is designated to talking about issues, problems, progress in what's happening in our SEL curriculum, what's happening in climate, having conversations around social emotional learning, adult social emotional learning. And that was something that was kind of instituted about 2-3 years ago. And that just keeps that dialogue. It just keeps that conversation going. And we have a superintendent that every opening day, I mean, he talks about SEL. And he's not, I wouldn't say he was someone has a natural SEL kind of persona, but I think he sees the value of it. And I've seen growth in him as well, that, kind of seeing that responding instead of reacting. And that, SEL is a part of our conversation. It's part of our our district improvement plan, our building improvement plan, and we also in our PDs and our meetings, we try to follow the signature practices out of Castle, with gatherings and closings and just having some protocol in place.
So the theme of today is compassion. Can you share a little bit about how compassion maybe shows up in this work?
I think that having SEL, especially even having time in your curriculum, it kind of demonstrates that we value time with students. We value taking time for the humanity of students, to talk about being grateful, having gratitude. I think students sometimes, I think there are times, especially during even some of the lessons, where we kind of connect that humanity, that kindness, and recognizing that more. And I think it just becomes a part of that mindset of kind of looking for the good in students and the good in the adults in our school district. And I think our students have also developed a language around the communication, the active listening, the way of maybe problem solving and not having the conflict. So I think that all kind of leads into that and how we treat each other and how our students treat each other. Is it perfect? No, it's an ongoing journey. It's something that's, but I think we're starting to kind of see differences as students move up through the grades and, in middle school and high school. There's that vocabulary that maybe wasn't there before we started this process and this journey.
So that was just what I was going to ask you. I think the viewers would be interested in what changes, observable changes you've seen in students and in adults. They can be qualitative, there might be some quantitative information, but just clearly people are bought into it. So what is it, and you've mentioned the intrinsic appeal of this, that it connects teachers to the humanity, to their original longing to be teachers. It feels right. But to a skeptic, what would you be able to say is about how this makes a difference?
One of the things we noticed, even when we started the journey 10 years ago, the first year, the specialists who worked with our preschool and our kindergarten noticed that cohort was different than the other cohorts. There was a change in maybe how those students were perceived. They were a little more calmer. We've also noticed long-term, our suspension rate has plummeted over time. And that was something that that we kind of really, we didn't really notice it for a while, and then all of a sudden we kind of noticed suspensions rates were going down. They were going down, in the elementary, the middle, and the high school. And I think it's also how our staff members decided to view some of the conflict or the issues that students were having. Instead of kicking them out of school, let's look at it a little bit differently. And I think that's been a change. There are always people that want to, kick the kids out, but I think there's kind of a willingness to kind of see maybe not why you're doing this, but there's probably more to that story, and people are kind of being more aware and a little more open to that. And I think that has made a tremendous difference. And I think also the messaging of our schools, we have a lot more positive messaging, positive affirmations. I think there's some really conscious areas that that's become a part of how we do business. And you see that, we have some principals that have just really kind of taken it on, and that has been quite powerful. We've actually moved a principal from one building that was probably a little weak in that, because he was in one building, amazing things happened, and so, or he was kind of moved to another building to try to kind of start that whole process of imagining what can happen. And I think it's just that openness to see things a little bit differently and with a little warmer heart than perhaps we saw years ago. And and at the same time, we have a much more impoverished population. We have Northeastern Ohio, we have a tremendous addiction problem. So we have problems, and in some ways, I think our focus on SEL and at times mindfulness has allowed our adults to kind of take a step back, because they're witnessing a lot as well with our students.
What are some of the current opportunities and challenges you see? You're 10 years into this journey. What's next, and what's hard, and what's exciting?
I would say what's kind of hard, of course, when you have a lot of turnover. We've had, some principal turnover, but we've been very lucky that we have our superintendent that, when people are hired in, that SEL is something that is mentioned in the job interview. We're kind of looking for that. And so, even though we may have some turnover and such and have to retrain people, I think, we also are attracting people that have an SEL mindset, have an interest in that. Looking ahead, we've been quite connected with Castle, and we, the last couple of years, have done a lot of training, a lot of national training with them. We send people to these trainings to keep things fresh, with our principals and some of our lead teachers, just providing more opportunities in that vein. In the state of Ohio, our governor gave money to the schools for mental health. And so we're dedicating the next couple of years to kind of amping up what we're already doing. The last couple of years, we've had some of our counselors have turned into SEL coaches, and we're looking at maybe even having an SEL coordinator under me, because I also have multiple other tasks and jobs within the school district. And so I would have maybe an assistant that would be helping me working in the schools, kind of getting more down and dirty at the classroom level, and kind of, so we're kind of looking to go a little bit bigger, and just kind of continuing that focus. And for me, it hasn't gotten old. I don't know. I just feel like every year is just that momentum. I think that slow momentum year after year, I think, has been a benefit. And it's taken us 10 years to get where we've gone, but we've built a really solid base. And, I'm still excited after all these years that we're continuing to do this. And I've had some opportunities to take some different trainings that kind of feed me as well.
And it's so rare for a school district to continue with one initiative for 10 years. I mean, the challenge in, there's usually an idea du jour, or there's something this year, and then next year there are two more initiatives, and then the year after that there's something else, and the agenda keeps changing. But to actually deepen and extend and allow this to take root is really very impressive.
Yes. No, I mean, I tell people when we do the new training, there's not many initiatives that last 10 years and is still going strong. And, hopefully, hopefully the superintendent stays on. That's been an important piece. But, I've dealt with 5 different superintendents during those 10 years, and we've been able to move forward. And, I feel like the last couple of years really take off and kind of be those leaders. A couple of years ago, actually it was last January, we took 2 students to a conference, and they talked about their SEL experience and they're in the high school, and they were amazing. I mean, they were with 2 students at another high school in Minneapolis, and our students, you can really tell that they've had some SEL training, because even the things they said, I don't think you could have prepped them that well. It was just, and the people in the audience were like, wow, these are the students that are coming out of your high school. And, they weren't your straight A students, but they were the students that, really saw the benefit of having the SEL training. And it was interesting. The one young man that was there, he says, you need to come to Warren, Ohio. These are bigger city schools, saying you need to come and see what we're doing. So that really made me proud that students are speaking about what we've done.
Well, it's an incredible natural experiment that you started with preschool and kindergarten, and now these people are in 11th, 12th grade, or, actually probably younger than that. My math isn't so good. Yes. But they're, to see that growth and maturation is really wonderful. Mm-hmm. So what, reflecting, if you will, on these last 10 years, what advice would you give to people who want to start and stand on your shoulders, not start as if they were inventing it from scratch, because there's no reason to, but what things to do, what things to avoid, anything that comes to mind that you can offer?
I think even being in a connection to maybe some kind of SEL community is important. Reading up on the research. For me, my connections through the original grant with Linda Lentieri, I'm still friends with her, and that connection has connected me to different trainings and different opportunities for our school district, and maybe even finding a champion that really wants to work with you. And for us, to have your U.S. congressman interested in your school is amazing. And when we had a superintendent a couple of years ago that was he was going to kind of nix the whole program. And I'm like, this was year 2. And I'm like, you don't understand. I said, we have a U.S. congressman that's in our pocket, and he's, for me, having that champion has been really important. And then also extending your tribe. I feel one of my jobs is I'm the supervisor of the school counselors. And so they're kind of my tribe. This is this is what they do best. And so they kind of feed me what I need too. I mean, I kind of have that willing audience that really keeps me going. And then they go out to the schools and I support them as they go out into the schools. But having that tribe is just really important. And for me, in the times that were a little lean, I was a teacher and a principal in this school district, and I know the importance of this. When I saw the training, it was like, wow, I wish I would have had this training, when I was a, practicing teacher and principal. And, but I kept the faith on that because I knew how important it was for our students, and for our school district. And, really, humanity is the basis of education. And, when things got a little rough and I got pushback from teachers or principals, I knew this was the right thing. And I think because I knew it was the right thing and I kept pushing and pushing. And a couple years ago, when we had our opening day, and the superintendent actually had me stand up and he said, SEL would not be here without Jill. And she said, but she was persistent of the importance of this. And that needs to be recognized. And sometimes things aren't going to go well, but if that's the right thing to do, you keep it going. And hopefully, as I, move on, in my career, and when I retire, hopefully this is my legacy, and that my intention is it's going to outlast once I leave the district. Hopefully 20 years from now, it's still going strong in a different form, in the way that the people that, are running it at that time. But, hopefully that is my legacy.
Is there anything else that you would like the audience to hear about Warren City? Anything that somehow we may not have covered that you think is worth telling, or we forgot about, or now just comes to mind?
Warren is a very relational town, and relationships are important. We're a town of about 40,000 people, but it's big enough that you can be a little anonymous, but a lot of people. And I kind of feel like SEL kind of was able to sustain here because social emotional learning and even the mindfulness piece is all about connecting people and being receptive to connection. And I just feel like, Warren's a special place for me. And to be able to bring this work to them, it was personally very personal to me. And it was important that, at this point in time, that we're kind of a leader. We're a small little Rust Belt town, and we're kind of the leaders in SEL. And I think it's something that we should be proud of. We have many challenges that are in our school district, but I think kind of being the leader in this kind of gives us a little swagger about about something that's so important.
That brings to mind, you're speaking about Warren as a relational community. Were there any initiatives you took to inform parents, to speak to the larger community, to let the Rotary know, to make sure the school board was on your side? Any of that kind of just making sure the outer community knew what the inner school community was doing?
I have spoken, I do yearly talk to the school board about the work that we're doing. We've done parenting programs I'm also the grant writer in the district. So I've written some grants on parenting programs around SEL. And I was just amazed how interested the parents were, that they were interested in this as well. And we did some meditation within some of this programming, and there's an interest and a need for them to find some peace. And I remember the one PD we did, and we asked parents, what was something you want to know more about? And I got 20 slips back that said, I want to know more about meditations. I said, we must have done a really good job on that, because it really resonated with them.
Jill, thank you so much for the work you've done in Warren City Schools in Warren, Ohio. And thank you for sharing that story with our participants in the summit. I know some of them may be in touch to find out more about what you've done, and that your little town could do it is an inspiration to a lot of people.